Hello everybody, welcome back. In this video, as I told you before, I'm gonna show you how to register to our application. Okay, we are going to build this functionality. So in this login page, actually whenever user clicks these don't have an account yet or sign up here text, as you can see, actually the UI is changes here because in our code in the before, when I give you this code in the login.php, I have just write this JavaScript function here. As you can see, we have here two forms. One of them is login form and the second one is register form. So as default, I'm hiding this register form from the users. So whenever user actually clicks this text here, actually it calls a function, a JavaScript function that I write called hide, as you can see here. And as a parameter, I'm sending register if I am showing register form right now. I'm sending register here because when we send register here, it will directly hide the register form and it will show the login form. Actually, that's how actually it is working. As you can see, we can we can change the forms here just by clicking those. Okay. So now we will write a function here. So whenever user clicks the register button, user will be able to register to the system. Okay, so now let's start to write this function. Actually, everything is ready here, guys. As you can see, in this form we have an input field and its name is input first name, another input field which its name is input last name, another one which is register email, and another one which is register password. Also we have a button which its name is register button, as you can see here. Okay, so first field is first name of the user, the second one is the last name of the user, the third one is email, and fourth one is the password. So whenever actually user clicks this register button, as you can see, I'm sending a request, a post request to the register.php. But still, we didn't create this register.php, and even I'm not gonna create it. I'm just gonna change this one to login.php, and I'm just gonna write my code what we need to here. Okay, so I'm just gonna check if is set post register button if user clicks the register button and if any request comes to this login.php URL. Request is comes to this URL, okay, and we are catching it here. If anyone click the register button and if a request comes to this URL, then we will get the name. And to get name, I'm just gonna say $_post, then input first name, because we know that whenever user actually clicks the register button, actually user completely submits this form, and in this form, because of that, we have some input fields called input first name, input last name, register email, and register password. Actually all of those fields values are submitted, and our URL is login.php, and that means all of those values will be sent to this file here. Okay, so here I'm just writing $_post and input first name. So I'm catching this input first name value. Then I'm gonna write here, so name underscore post input last name. And also we have to catch the email and password as well, and that's why I'm gonna write here email. So it was a registered email, and then I'm gonna write here password underscore post, and this is going to be registered password. Okay, actually for now everything is okay. If anyone clicks this register button, we got those values. Okay, so I'm gonna create a variable here called result, and I will say that user register. As you remember, we have already created an object here from user class, and I'm saying that call this register function, which will be created in a few seconds in the user.php class. So, and as a parameter, we will send name, surname, email, and password. Okay, So I want that as a result, if user is successfully registered to the system, I want to hold that user information actually in the result. So that's why if user successfully registered, actually this function will return the user back here. So I'm just gonna check here if result is not empty, so not null. If his result is not null, that means user successfully registered. And I'm gonna hold this user in the user logged in session. Okay, so I'm gonna write here result as we have done before. And if the user successfully registered, then I'm gonna send the user to the index.php. Okay, so I'm gonna write here header location index.php, and actually that's all. So now let's go to the user.php file, and here we are going to create this register function. Okay, I'm gonna write public function register, and also as a parameter we will get the name, surname, name, surname, password, and email as well. Okay, actually, so I just want to write some kind of validation. So I want to check if user actually submitted a name here which has more than 4 characters. And I'm gonna check the same thing as well for the surname. And I'm gonna check if user is really submitted an email address. Okay. And also I'm gonna check if the password is between 8 characters to 30 characters. So to do this, guys, I'm just gonna write some another functions here. Okay, so the first function that I'm gonna write is public function public function. Probably I will give it a validate username, validate first name, and as a parameter I will get the name. Okay, so and in this function I'm just gonna write if strlen. This is a predefined function in PHP, and we can determine the number of characters in any string value. So that's why I'm just gonna put this name inside this, and I will check that if the str length, the name, I mean if the number of characters in this name is less than 4, then that means there's an error. So that's why I'm just gonna create an error array here, but I will call this one as register error array. And also whenever an object is created from this user class, I want it to create automatic and empty register error array. So that's why in this constructor method I'm just gonna write this register error array equals an empty array. Okay, so now in our validate first name function, if the number of characters in this parameter is less than 4, then I will just put this error message to this register error array. I will say this register error array, and the message that I want to put is your first name must be between 4 and 25 characters. And also I'm gonna write another validation here. Actually, I'm just gonna say or, as you know this means or strlen name is greater than 25. That means if the length of this name is less than 4 character or greater than 25 character, then this error will be occurred. Okay, so now I'm gonna say the return, so directly this function will be end here. And also I'm gonna check the same thing as well for the last name as well. So I'm just gonna copy this function, I'm just gonna paste it here. So here I'm just gonna say validate last name, and this will be surname. I'm gonna change this one is your surname, or just say your last name must be within 4 and 25 characters. Okay, and also guys, we have to make sure that these are actually surname as well. Okay, for the first name and last name, our validation will be work fine. So now we have to create another validation for the email address. That's why I'm gonna create a function here, validate email, and as a parameter it will get the email address. And I'm gonna use another predefined function here called filter var. So that's why I'm gonna write if filter var email, I'm sending this email address, is filter validate email. Actually, this is a predefined function in PHP as well. So it gets two parameters. One of them is a string. I mean, this string must be an email, by the way. And another parameter is filter validate email. So actually, these function checks if this provided email address has this at, or if it has gmail.com, hotmail.com. I mean, if it is really valid email address, okay? But the most important one is this at. So okay, if it has this at, probably this function will return true. But here I just want to check if the email address is not a valid one. So that's why I'm gonna put an exclamation mark here, and it makes it if this is false. If this function returns false, that means if this email is not a valid one, then I'm gonna put this message to the my register error array. I'm gonna say register error array, and the message must be this email address is invalid. And also I'm just gonna put return here. Okay, actually this is the first step. But what about if the email address is valid, but if the email address is already existed in the database, then that means this is also an error. So that's why I'm just gonna write a SQL statement here, and I'm gonna say select email from users where email is equal to this one. So I'm gonna write statement this connection prepare this SQL, and I'm gonna put this, I'm gonna supply the email address to this question mark. So that's what I'm gonna write here, statement execute email, and also I'm gonna say result will be statement fetch. Okay, if there's one email address as like as this one, I mean if there's any user in the database with this email address, it will get this user from database. Actually it will just get his email address from the database, and it will put it here. Actually we can return ID as well, or name as well, it doesn't matter. I'm just checking this one to if there's at least one email as which is same as this one. Okay, so I'm gonna leave it like that email, and I'm gonna check here if result is not null, that means there is a one user with this email address. Then I'm gonna put this message, this error message, to this register error array, and the message will be this email is already in use, and I'm gonna just say return. By the way, you don't have to write these returns here, okay? Actually this is makes sense to write it here, because if there's an error, I mean if this email address is not valid one, we can write stop this function here, or we can continue it and it will stop it here as well. That's why it doesn't matter. Okay, the last thing that we have to do, we have to check if the provided password is valid one. That's why I'm gonna say a public function validate password. As a parameter I will get password, and I will just check again strlen password is um, less than 8 character, or strlen password is greater than 30 character, then I will say that there's an error like as this one, register error. error array, and the message will be your password must be between 8 and 30 characters. Actually, that's all. Okay, I'm gonna write return as well. Actually, yeah, I don't have to write this one as here, but I really like to write. I don't know why. Okay, so everything is okay up to here. So in this register function, actually, I have to use those validations. So to use those validations, I'm just gonna say this validate first name, and I will send the name. And also I'm gonna do the same thing for other functions as well. I'm gonna check last name and I will send surname. Then I will check this validate um, email. Then I'm gonna send email address as well. Then I'm gonna send password as well to the validate password function. Okay. Okay. Actual first step is checking if all of those values are valid. If they are valid, actually there is no problem. But if they are not valid, we have to check actually if this register error array is empty or not. If it is empty, that means there is no error. But if it is not empty, that means we have an error and we will not insert that user to the database. Okay. So that's why I'm just gonna check here if empty this register error array equal true. That means if this register error array is empty, then we can insert the user. So that's why I'm gonna just say return this insert user details, and I'm gonna send name, then surname, then email, and then password. You might ask that there is no function like that insert user details because we didn't write it yet. I'm gonna write this function here. I'm gonna say public function insert user details, and as a parameter will get name, surname, then email address, then it will get the password as well. And in this function, first of all, I have to convert this password to the encrypted one. So that's why I'm just gonna write here password md5, which is predefined function in PHP, and I will give my password. So it will convert it to the encrypted one, encrypted password. Okay. So then I'm gonna write another SQL statement here, and it will be insert into users name, surname, email, and password. And as a values, I'm gonna send those values. Okay. So I'm gonna write a statement. This connection prepare is SQL. I'm gonna write a try and catch block here. I'm gonna check if there's an error or not. Okay. So in this try block, I'm just gonna write here statement execute name, surname, email, and password. I'm supplying those variables to for those question marks. Okay. So I'm gonna also check the last inserted. I mean, if these statements successfully insert users after this is executed, I want to get the user ID from the database. So there's multiple ways to do. Maybe we can write another SQL statement here and we can get the last inserted user's ID, or we can directly use a predefined function in for PDO. So this is actually, I'm gonna write a variable here last ID, and I'm gonna say that this connection last insert ID. This is a predefined function for the PDO objects, and it just gets last inserted records ID. It automatically gets it. Okay, So because of that, we are adding a users to the user table. It will get the last inserted user's ID from database and it will store it here. Assume that we have 4 users and now we just add the fifth one and its ID automatically will become 5 in the database. And that's why this last ID will become 5 here, because this function gets 5 from database and stores it in the last ID variable. Okay, so as I told you before, if we inserted the user successfully to the database, then we have to return the user, and because of that we are returning user, at the end we will store that user in the session. Okay, so that's why I'm just gonna write here user and I'm gonna create an empty object. Okay, to create an empty object in the PHP, we have to write new std class. This is a predefined class actually for the PHP, and whenever we use it, we are creating an empty object. It does not have any function, so we can't use any function on this one. We can just directly create an empty object. So I'm gonna create a user object. I'm gonna create an empty object, and I give it a name as user, and I'm gonna say user ID will be last ID, which we just get from the database. And also for username, I'm gonna say just name, and user surname will be surname, and then user email will be email. Okay, actually I can get the password as well, but I don't want to get it because I'm not gonna use it. But if you want to use it, then you can just write user password password. Okay, it's all fine, but I'm not gonna get it because I'm not gonna use it. Okay, if we have successfully inserted the user, then we have created a user object here actually, and we just assign those values to this object, and I'm gonna return the user. Okay, so because of that, this function returning the user, this user, and actually here in this register function, because of that we are calling these insert user details here, this will return this user to here, and because of that we have another return here. Actually this return will return this user as well to the where actually this function is called. So that's why this register will return the user here and we will store it in the results. Okay, actually we didn't complete it here. If there's an error, I'm just gonna return null. Okay, also in this register function, I'm just gonna write an else statement here, and I'm gonna check if we have any error message in the register error array. I'm just gonna return null again. Okay, so actually that's all. So let's have a try and see if you successfully created a user. So in the login.php, actually, if we are inserted the user successfully database, as I said, we are holding this user in the session. So I'm just gonna come to here. Okay, um, I'm just gonna come to here, and in this registration form, if we have any error and if we couldn't insert the user to the database, I want to show the error messages that we have created in these validations. Okay, so here I'm just gonna write PHP for each user get register errors as error. Actually, we didn't create this function yet, but we're gonna create it right now. I'm gonna close my PHP doc here, okay? And let's go to the user.php and create this get register errors. Actually, what this function will do, this function will get all the errors from the register error array, and it will return them to here. Okay, so if it returns more than one error or just one error, it doesn't matter. We will print this message to the screen. I mean, we will print the errors itself to the screen. So that's why I'm gonna write here div class alert alert danger. Then I'm gonna write role is alert. This is actually a bootstrap class, and I'm gonna print error itself. Okay, so if you have any error, it will print the errors automatically to in the screen. So here I'm just gonna write public function get register errors, and here I'm just gonna say um, return is register error array. So actually it will return this error array here. It will return the array actually here, and for each element on this array we will print the errors itself. Okay, so now let's go to this page and let's try to insert a user. First of all, let me write a first name which has to be at least 4 characters, but I'm just gonna write 3 characters to see if really my validation is working. So I'm just gonna write test here, and I'm gonna write test as well to the password as well. For the email address, I'm just gonna write johndoe@gmail.com, which is the email address that I already have in my database. And if for password, I'm gonna write 6 characters. Okay, actually all of them are wrong here. So whenever I press this register button, I have to see all of the errors here. So let's have a try. Because of that, actually whenever we press the register button, we are sending the request to the login.php, and because of that, as default, register form is hidden. We couldn't see the errors here, but when we press this one, actually as you can see, errors are actually here. But because of that, we are hiding these register form, we couldn't see those errors. So we're gonna fix this one as well. By the way, the another error is here. I think we supplied the email and password wrongly, because it didn't put any errors for the password. So that means actually we are sending this email and passwords in the wrong places in here. Yeah, here actually we have to send name, surname, password, and email. I think, let me check it here. Yes, as you can see, we have to send password and email, but we are sending in the wrong place. So that's why I'm just gonna convert this one to password and this one to email. Okay, so now let's try again. So I'm just gonna write test John Doe, and as a password 1 to 6. As you can see, now it says this email address is already in use. Yes, actually it's true. It is already in use. I'm using it, and the password is less than actually 8 characters. So that's why it says your password must be between 8 and 20 characters. Okay, so that means our validations are working. But what about if everything is okay? What actually going to happen? If everything is okay, actually user has to be redirected to the login dot sorry, index.php. So that's why I'm just gonna try test user user. I'm gonna write email as a test user 45@gmail.com. Probably I have tried before, and I already inserted test user at gmail.com to the database. That's why I just write test user 45. As a password, I'm just gonna write 1 to 8. Okay, so when I press to register, as you can see, the user actually successfully registered, and we have been redirected to the index.php. So if I try to go to login.php, it will not allow me, because as remember in the previous video, or the beginning of this video, I don't exactly remember, we have inserted this session. So if there's a session, actually user shouldn't be see this login.php. So that's why we are redirecting the user to index.php. So if I go to here, if I try to go to login.php, as you can see, it redirect me here. Okay, so now I'm just gonna log out from the system, and now I can go to login.php. Now I'm gonna add a functionality to, if we are, 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 trying to insert, I mean, if we are trying to register, or if the user is trying to register, and if there is an error, then we have to keep these register form here, and we have to show the error messages instead of just showing this login one here. Okay, so that's why let's go to here, and I'm just gonna write, and here I'm just gonna write a PHP. I'm just gonna put my PHP tags, and I will write if is set post, if the post request is has been done by the register button, then I'm gonna insert a script here. Okay, I'm gonna insert the script, and this script will be like that, this one. I'm gonna use this jQuery, and I will just say ready function. I'm gonna write a jQuery function here. I could use this jQuery object here because I have already added jQuery to this HTML file. Okay, actually this is a PHP file, but it's okay. So I have already added, and you can find it in the assets JS folder, and there's a jQuery 3.3.1. Okay, so I'm just gonna write here login form, find login form height, and register form show. So it will just show the register form, and it will hide the login form. Actually, that's all that we have to write here. And also I'm just gonna fix this one. I want it to look a little more nicely, and here I'm just gonna write script. Actually, that's all what we have to write here. Also, I'm gonna write an else statement, or just say else if statement here. If the post is made by login button, okay, if the post is made by login button, then I'm just gonna show the login form instead of a register form. So that's why I'm gonna write the almost the same thing here. I'm just copy this one, I paste it here, but instead of just hiding the login form, I'm just gonna hide the register form, and I will show the login form. Okay, so let's have a try again. So now I'm just gonna refresh the page. As you can see, we got an error because we didn't close this PHP tags here. Okay, now when I go to here, and if I write wrong things again, I'm gonna write the same thing, 126. As you can see, our form is still here, and we can see the error messages. Okay, so even actually it's the same thing as well for the login form. If I write the email as wrong here, or even if I write the password wrong here, as you can see, it says email or password is invalid, and I'm still here. Okay, but the last thing that I want to do is, if there's an error, I want to keep those values here as well. I don't want to I don't want user to write them again one by one. So that's why I'm just gonna add some other fields here. I'm just gonna find the input first, name input field, and for its value I'm just gonna add the name. You may ask me where is this name is coming. This name is coming here. As you can see, actually we are um, whenever user clicks this register button, actually we are submitting those input field values, right? So here actually I'm storing the input fields values in different variables. For example, I am holding the first name in the name variable, and the surname in the surname variable, email in the email, and password in the password. So that's why I'm just gonna write here the name. So that means it will get this name variable, and it will put its value to the input first name input field again. Okay, I'm gonna do the same thing for other fields. I'm gonna say input last name, and its value will become last name. I think it was last name, sorry, it was a surname, so that's why I'm just gonna put here surname. Also for the email, I'm just gonna say input sorry, this is going to be register email, and I will put the email value, and the last one is going to be register password. I think we shouldn't put the password because maybe user want to change it, but okay, let's see if I put it. It's not so important. Okay, everything is okay here. So I'm gonna do the same thing as well for the login form as well. Okay, uh, I'm just gonna show the email and password that user entered, or maybe I'm not gonna do this for login form, but if you like to do, you can do it, because you are just gonna copy this one here like that. Instead of input first name, actually you are going to use login email and login password. So you are just gonna write login email, login password, and instead of writing this name and surname, we are just gonna go to do this login handler. As you can see, we are holding the login email values in email and the login password values in the password. So if you just write here email and password, it will be work fine. Okay, so let's have a try and see what actually is happening here. I'm gonna refresh the page. Actually, we don't have to do, and I'm just gonna write test johndoe@gmail.com and the password 126. And whenever I click the register button, as you can see, and they didn't work because, as you can see here, actually we are targeting the IDs. Actually, it tries to find the field with input first name ID, but our fields actually do not have an ID attribute, and that's why it didn't work. So I'm just gonna add ID attribute for each one. I'm gonna add input first name for the input first name field, and input last name for the last name ID, and register email for the email field, and register password for the register password field. Okay, also it will be, we will get the same error in the login form as well, and it will not show those variables, I mean those values. So that's why I'm just gonna add here as well ID login email and ID login password. Okay, so when we come here and when we try again, I'm just gonna write login.php, and I will come here, I will write test John Doe and 1 to 6. So as you can see, even when I submit and if you have the errors, still the values are here. Okay, so it's going to be the same as well in the login form as well. If I write the email address true, but if I write the password wrong, as you can see, it says email or password is invalid, but the values are still here. So for this video guys, that's all. So see you in the next video. In the next video, I'm gonna show you how to get the post, all the posts from database, and show them as like as this one. Okay, so see you in the next video.